Welcome, guys, to the very first ever Composers Connect, whatever that means. And this one, our first one is about film scoring. And we have some wonderful guests. We have Joaquim Badia on our left at the top there, if you can see him. He is a composer and orchestrator. He is a pianist, a singer. I don't think there's much that he can't do. He's also a graduate of the Royal College of Music and Berkeley. So we're very honored to have him with us. He works a lot alongside us on Indian films, probably orchestrated more than a dozen, I would imagine, more than that, I think. And then we also have Ron, who is a wonderful composer from Chennai, down in South India. And he is popular for quite a few scores. Maya brought him to the scene. Game Over, which we're going to talk about a little bit today. And also Naragasuran, which was a big score, which was recorded in Macedonia, where Ron actually went out to record. And we'll be talking to Ron about his process and how he looks at and how he approaches composing. And then we have, last but not least, Laurent Koppitz. And you might say, what is a Frenchman doing in Macedonia? Well, about 10 years ago, Laurent, something like that? Oh, you have to switch your mic on, Laurent.
Yes, 10 years ago. Hi, everybody.
10 years? 10 years ago, with his wonderful wife, Oud, they decided to start the FAMES project, which is a beautiful recording studio and an incredible orchestra, the Macedonian Symphonic Orchestra, which really has transformed the Indian film scene over the last 6 or 7 years. And I think we've recorded over 100 film scores with Laurent. So welcome all of you. What I'm going to talk to you first of all, is Laurent, you have some special news for us. I know it's VE Day. We're celebrating 75 years at the end of the Second World War. And we've all been going through a bit of a war with this pandemic, which I think has affected everybody. And the orchestra has shut down now, and also this place shut down as well, temporarily. Laurent, so can you tell us what's been happening with the studio and the orchestra and what is significant about today?
Hi, everybody. Yes, we just reopened today. Today is our first session after 2 months lockdown. And yes, there are two sessions today. I think one for, I don't know, England something, or Switzerland, and another one with French composers. So yeah, we are happy to be back in studio, where we are, doing so much work with you, with India, with a lot of people from all around the planet. So yeah, it's a great day for us. We've been missing recording a lot, and finally we are back. So I hope that the worst is behind us and we'll be able all to carry on our work for the next months.
So I think that is really very positive news, because there's a lot of people waiting for sessions, and it's great that we can now get back to work. I mean, I know it's not the same everywhere. There's some issues, certainly in London. We're not doing orchestral sessions. We're not doing big sessions. And I think Macedonia being a small place, and the fact that things were controlled very well, that's enabled the orchestra and the studio to open up. Joaquim, I want to talk to you first, actually, about yourself as a composer. Don't look too scared. You're a composer and arranger, and you've also been doing something quite crazy during these lockdown days. You've been writing a string quartet and recording it and making a video and posting it on YouTube every day. For how many days?
Today will be number 39, so 39 days.
You've literally written one a day. That is actually clinically insane, but it's and actually.
Well, actually, no, I gave myself 1 day free. So there was 1 day where I wrote 2, and I gave the players also a chance to have a Sunday off, somewhere in the middle. I don't know which ones, but we recorded 2 in 1 day. So then they could have 1 day off, but I posted it. So that's no one knows that. I guess that's cheating, but,
no, but it's
the average is still
it's
one a day.
An incredible feat. So let's just talk a little bit about you as a composer, and then we can talk about your role in arranging for Bohemia Junction and for people like Ron, and
Sure.
the work that's been recorded with Macedonia. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I mean, it's not very original, but I guess just to say that I started from my classical background mainly, and I was en route to being a pianist, really. I never liked practicing, so at some point I decided it was probably not the best thing for me to pursue a career in sort of concert, but classical performance at the highest level. I then thought, oh, maybe accompanying, because I love the whole collaborative aspect, and I was almost on way to America for 2 years to do a master's in collaborative piano in accompaniment at Mannes in New York. And then well, first of all, money, it was very expensive, but also I came across this master's about film music, and I thought, oh, and it was just 1 year, and it was the most clinical decision I've ever taken. I just thought, well, I could do that, it wasn't, would I love it? I just thought, well, I guess I could do that, and I hear there's probably more money there than, I mean, it really was, I'm sorry, it's disappointing to admit this, but it was a very kind of practical decision. It just so happens, though, that I made the right decision, and I love it.
Well, that's reassuring.
Yeah, and who knows? I mean, maybe if I hadn't loved it, I would have done something else, or maybe not. Who knows? And then I'd be a bitter composer at the age of 28, but 27. But I love it. I love it. And that's so now I don't perform anymore. I don't play the piano. I teach the piano and I'll accompany my students and whatnot. But I don't consider myself a pianist. When I know so many people that are insanely good. But yes, I've just delved right into the orchestration, composing, and the lot, and it's much more varied.
How important is it for you as a arranger or orchestrator to have, to be a composer? Because all of the orchestrators that we work with are all composers, and it seems really important to have that creative understanding.
Yes, I don't think you end up with an intimate knowledge of the orchestra by accident, and I don't know of any. I know of a lot of orchestrators that professionally they'll just tag themselves as orchestrators and not composers. But they all do composing, even if it's not a source of income for them. They all, again, it's such a specific thing to work with musicians and to know the orchestra well enough to arrange these things that you don't just happen to want to do that in order to become an orchestrator. You do it because you love it and because you've wondered, what this would sound like if I wrote it like this, or if I wrote it like that, and then there's a sort of artistic element there already, isn't there?
So would you say that also when you're doing orchestration, you have a creative freedom, or does that really come down to the composer that you're working with, which we can talk again with Ron, because you've worked with Ron before?
Yes.
So we can have a chat about that. How much freedom do you have as a creator over something which is actually more of a practical thing that you have to achieve?
Well, of course, a lot of it will just be a routine. So you will know what you need to do in order for it to sound good with the lineup that you have, and there are so many variables. So you get a mock-up with about 100 players, and then you've booked a session for 15. You might just have to rearrange a few things if you want them to sound convincing, and then that in itself can be a creative process, because it's not, or simply a puzzle. I don't know, but I think a lot of the time I think of my own composing as a puzzle. You have an idea, and then the rest of it is just figuring it out, rather than epiphany after epiphany, and you just have a few bars that you simply don't know really where they came from. And then you do know where the rest of them came from. It was from you sitting there doing it,
Exactly.
writing the bloody thing. And it's somehow the same with orchestration, that a lot of it is this kind of artistic puzzle that you need to solve.
No, that's very interesting. I just have a talk with Ron. Ron, let me just change. So Ron, you've kind of really come through also the pianist side, playing the piano. And we were discussing earlier, and I came to know that you did all your grades quite early on, and your grade 8 at Trinity, you actually got the highest mark in the whole of India. Now that's quite a massive achievement. So as a composer, you as a pianist, how important is that when you're composing?
As a pianist?
As a pianist, so to be able to play the piano, how important is that to your process?
So basically, how I just start writing up a theme since I'm honest. I just read the script from the director. He just sends me the script and I just read it over.
Ron, can you get a little bit more level on your microphone? Just a little louder if you can. It would just
really?
Just a little bit louder if you can.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Oh, beautifully. Beautiful.
All right. So I just, basically, I don't just get into the programming stuff right away, like get my template done. First, I just sit on the piano, and I'll just start figuring out some kind of a theme or a suite for the overall story of the film. And then I just send it over to my director, and he doesn't give, he normally, I've been fortunate enough to work with some very few directors who don't give me any references, because they really trust me. They really trust. They want some kind of originality. So they just send me the script over. So I'll just read the script, and whatever idea I come up with, I'll just compose a basic theme, and I'll just send it over to my director. And from then on, we just like collaborate then and there. Like, during the writing process itself, I've been able to help assist and collaborate with my directors. That's how I normally work. But
okay.
That's down south here.
Okay, well, I mean, I think that everyone works in sort of different ways. I'm just going to quickly have a quick chat with Laurent, because I want to just also talk to him a little bit about how you got into doing the orchestra, because you're a player yourself, aren't you? A musician, and you've worked in the industry, Laurent. How did you go from what you were doing into the orchestra? Because that's a big jump.
Yeah, I've been classically trained musically in my teenage, and I studied musicology in the faculty. Then I moved to music publishing for starting my career. So I started my career as a music editor in contemporary music for what has become now Universal Music, but by the time it was like BMG, Bertelsmann Music Group, so where I worked for 5 years. And then I moved to Macedonia with my wife, who's old, and we opened, literally by accident, a studio that was stopped for many years, and we didn't have really precise idea of what we wanted to do, but the studio was there and not functioning. So we proposed to the government this time to just do an orchestra and try something. So we came up to listen to 400 people and started this, journey. And by the years, the orchestra was playing, better and better. And we found a composer from all over, the planet. And then 10 years ago, and after 5 years, the orchestra was doing really well, 5-6 years. And we decided to go further and to build our own music recording stage facility. So we went with architects and acoustic people, and we just built a stage that is around 400 square meter, a big box. And we did this in quite very fast. I think we built and we designed it in something like 2 years. Since then we're playing, and the orchestra is like performing like maybe probably around 300 sessions a year, I would say, of 3 hours. So it's nearly every day. This was pre-pandemic situation, statistics, so it might change after. But yeah, so we have been incredibly lucky and incredibly to find all this culture and to be able to work a lot with India, with you, Andrew, since 2010, I believe. Something like this, so we met in 2010.
2013.
2013, yeah. So, and we have been incredibly lucky to work with all the country from, France, Germany, India, I don't know, now China a lot, US, of course, and Europe. And we have been learning a lot of different styles. And yeah, we are very thankful for everything.
Yeah, I think what you've built is something quite extraordinary, because I know a lot of composers find it very difficult to pay what we would call Western prices for an orchestra, Air or Abbey Road Studios. And I remember in the early days when I spoke to you, you were saying you were really trying to provide a service that enabled people to move from samples up to being able to record with an orchestra at favorable prices. Now, I know everybody wants to be able to record with an orchestra, and I know that Ron has recorded two or three films with you, and I want to just so that the everyone watching this and tuning in can, because there's this dilemma of actually, can we afford to have an orchestra? So why don't we, and directors will say, well, the samples sound great, so why don't we just stick with that? And then there's the whole thing of going to the next level. I actually want to, first of all, just show something that Joaquim has actually written. So I'm just going to share my screen, if this is going to work. 1 second. This is the score, which I'm just going to show. Can everyone see that okay? Just raise your hand or fly a flag or jump up and down if you can.
Oh dear, I can see it.
Oh, everyone's raising their hands, so that's great. Hands in the air for Joaquim. So this is, okay, I'm going to lower all hands now. I know I see how it all works. Thank you very much, everybody, for responding. So this is a really well-prepared score. So it looks really beautiful. I just want to go back to the top and have a look at what the style of playing is at the top here. We'll ask Joaquim a little bit about that shortly. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to play, let me just stop this share, 1 second. All technical details here. So I'm now going to just play a piece of music, which, well, the piece that you wrote, Joaquim, which is the demo, shall we say, or the mock-up.
Yeah.
So let me just, 1 second. I'm just playing a part of it. And again, I hope that everyone can hear this okay. Okay, so that to me sounds rather wonderful, but now let's have a listen to the real orchestra.
Yeah.
that's wonderful. Let's.
Oh,
yeah, Joaquim.
What a difference. No, just a brief. I think we were listening to a mono, but because it wasn't well, or maybe to me, it just didn't sound. So I think we should make these available later. Yes, so that.
Yeah, we'll make all of this, and we'll save the chat as well.
So, obviously, my mix was not in mono, but hopefully you can hear the difference. I mean, I can even in the Zoom quality that we just witnessed. Yeah, exactly. Someone says the second one felt much richer. I think that's the key, isn't it? It's alive, you know, not live. Well, it's live, but it's alive. And the mock-ups just sound a bit.
And do you think that? I mean, I heard the mock-up and it sounded great to me. And the trouble is, I don't know if you experienced this, Ron, that when you play your demo to the director, they say, "Yeah, this is great." Do you have that problem? And you have to say, "No, we want to have the money. We want to go to Macedonia. We want to record the orchestra."
Well, I haven't had that kind of a problem until now, because they understand first film, they've listened to the mock-ups and then they've listened to the live recordings, how it came out eventually. So the directors who I've worked, they really know like what is going to be added to the table after the live sessions. And when it helps me more when I mix it for the theater mix, for the Atmos mix. So that is the main reason I find the difference very much. It's very organic, I would say.
Okay, that's really good. That's very good. Just Zane is giving me some direction as to how to turn things into stereo. Zane is a wonderful engineer in Bombay. So not just an engineer, is a drummer as well. Oh, Ron, you worked with Zane on your very first score. That's right. It's good to have the chat going there. Yes, Joaquim.
No, while you maybe you can have a look at that setting while I say the following. I just, obviously musicians know what a difference it makes, and directors also know, but they will be time and time again shocked at what you can achieve with samples, especially, you know, I worked for Spitfire for a while, and so I've got all the Spitfire libraries. I also have spent, you know, years sort of collecting libraries from here and there, and so I have a huge selection to choose from, and the mock-ups. I mean, now, you know, I listen to that one and it's not as good as I could make it sound even with samples. But it's just that one first project that you have with a director and trying to convince them that it really is worth it, because then after that they're hooked, and there's a reason, and it's because it just completely changes it adds so much. I mean, I chose this cue, so I don't know if we can go back to the score, but because there were just so many things that I thought, well, even today I couldn't do that with samples, or it would just take so much work and it wouldn't be rewarding work. It would just be bonkers work. So for instance, bar 6 to bar 7, there's that slide for the violins. Yeah. So what is it? You know, the portamento there. You can, obviously, some sample libraries have got portamento, legato, but it just will never sound as good as the real thing. It just so happens that D on, I mean, this is too technical possibly for some people, but just that D on the downbeat, it can be a harmonic on the violins. Yeah, that one. So a lot of people, what they did was, a lot of the violinists in the session, what they did was slide up to the harmonic, which sounds completely different. And that, I mean, I know of one sample library that might be able to do that, is the Joshua Bell solo violin, but it's a solo violin, it's not a section. When you get a section doing that, it's bonkers. Then scrolling down, there's a moment where the clarinet does a sort of glaze up as well at some point. You can't really do that successfully, and I don't know what the marking is. I think the marking is jazzy. Yeah, at bar 26, we're getting there. Yeah, so that, you know, it's the difference between, you know, something like that, oh, octave lower, or you know, and when a clarinetist who sees that thinks, oh, this is my moment, you know, the composer went through the trouble of giving me a specific marking, you know. At bar 21, the composer said solo, so already, you know, I'm the only clarinetist in the session. Obviously, it's going to be solo, but someone's put solo there means I'm important. So then they enjoy that, you know. I then put it also for the oboe in 2 bars later because they don't see each other's scores. But you know, it's just things like that that connect the composer to the musicians and the musicians to the music. And then it's not just the one brain adding to the music, but it's everyone's brains. And when you get a string section, it's just unbelievable what you can achieve just with a bit of back and forth in the room, you know, with the musicians. It's just unbelievable. Anyway, sorry.
That's great, Joaquim. No, Laurent, so do you find that when you get new clients or composers coming to you, are they from all levels, or are they just kind of new composers, not much experience? I mean, what is the sort of level of composers
in terms of level, we have all kind of level, going from first project ever in orchestra up to, let's say, Oscar winner or nominated. So the thing is, it doesn't make any difference for us, and I don't think that it makes any difference for the orchestra actually, because basically what is very important is as we have like 2 important like partner in the chain of the success of the project is the composer, of course, which brings all the idea, and the orchestrator, which is giving the essential aspect of a score, also making it sound good. So I would say that any level from the very beginning to the end, as long as this chain is very well respected, we can get very, very good results.
And secondly, Laurent, you there's two ways of recording with you. One is attending the sessions, and the other one is remote. Now, obviously, you know, we're all in different parts of the world here, so we can achieve that with recording. Explain how that works, the remote recording.
In fact, we have launched this remote recording since the beginning when we opened in 2007 or 8, and I think we were one of the first studio to do that. And basically, the idea was that not everybody could afford, you know, to travel and to come to the session. And we were really on the like independent markets, you know, which some other call low cost, but I would call independent, which sounds more cool. and I think we just bring the studio to the people. So even if you had 1 hour or you know a small 3-4 minutes for a main title for young composers, it would be affordable for everybody to just try the experience of to record with a real orchestra. And it turned it very successfully because we had like hours, you know, per section from everywhere, let's say from Slovenia, from US, from Chile, from Argentina, Canada, India, everywhere. And everybody was able to try it 1 hour, you know. And by this time we just grew our number of people that we used to get. So we had a lot of composers who started actually with the orchestra. And I think it was a really good stuff at this period to propose that, because it was not really a common use to do this, you know. So that's it.
Well, it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's a rags to riches, but it's kind of like from zero to hero, I think, with you, because if you, as you said, you started the, restarted a studio that was already there, but 2 years it's been now, you built a brand new studio. I'm going to show a little clip, I hope it plays okay, of a session that we did where the composer came out, a composer called Anurag Saika. And this is a little bit from It's called Project Borjit, and it's actually a 500 or 600-year-old traditional Assamese music. This is a part of the documentary. I'll play three minutes or something. The composer is talking in Assamese. It's got English subtitles, but it gives a bit of an idea of the studio.
Start with Koppito. We take like 20, 30 bars. We play. First, maybe I will play for them just these 20, 30 bars, just to enter in the world.
ইয়াৰ প্ৰতিটো বিষয় প্ৰতিটো সময় মোৰ কাৰণে নতুন আছিল ইয়াৰ বিভিন্ন ধৰণৰ মাইকিং টেকনিক্স তাৰে কিছুমান ইনষ্ট্ৰুমেণ্ট মই আগতে দেখিছিলোঁ কিছুমান ইনষ্ট্ৰুমেণ্ট মই আগতে দেখা নাই দেয়াৰ ৱাজ লাইক লটছ অফ নাৰ্ভাছনেছ এক্সাইটমেণ্ট প্ৰতিটো সময়তে খালি মই এটা কথাই ভাবিছিলোঁ যদি আমাৰ গুৰু দুজন শ্ৰীমন্ত শংকৰদেৱ আৰু শ্ৰীমন্ত মাধৱদেৱে এই সময়ত আহি যদি মোক অকণমান গাইড কৰিব পাৰিলেহেঁতেন মোক যদি বুজাব পাৰিলেহেঁতেন যে অনুৰাগ তই যিখিনি কৰি আছ তাৰ এইখিনি ভুল হৈছে বা এইখিনি ভাল কৰাৰ আৰু স্থল আছে অসমৰ প্ৰতিজন গুৰু যাৰ ওচৰলৈ গৈ মই বৰগীতৰ ওপৰত বিভিন্ন আলোচনা কৰিছিলোঁ যে বৰগীত কিদৰে পৰিৱেশন কৰা হয় বিভিন্ন ৰাগসমূহ তাল প্ৰসংগীয়া শৈলী গোৱাৰ সময় যিখন আচলতে বৰগীতৰ প্ৰকৃত পৃথিৱী সেই পৃথিৱীখনতকৈ এই পৃথিৱীখন মোৰ বাবে কমপ্লিটলি নতুন আৰু বেলেগ কিন্তু এটা সময়ত যেতিয়া গোটেই সংগীত শিল্পীসকলে একেলগে বজাবলৈ আৰম্ভ কৰিলে মই খালি এটাই অনুভৱ কৰিলোঁ ইট ৱাজ ডিভাইন ইট ৱাজ মেজিকেল মোৰ কাৰণে এইটো এটা সপোন আছিলে কাৰণ মই ইমান বেছি ভাল পাওঁ আৰু মই ভাবোঁ যে শংকৰদেৱ আৰু মাধৱদেৱ তেওঁলোক আমাৰ জেনেৰেশ্যনটো নহয় পৃথিৱীৰে ইমান দুজন প্ৰগ্ৰেছিভ শিল্পী আৰু গোটেই পৃথিৱীয়ে তেওঁলোকক জনাটো উচিত
I really enjoyed this session, playing music from Shimanta Madhavdev from Asaf.
I would rather say that it's a mix of jazz and folk music because the arrangements are with pretty much sevenths with ninths like intervals and it sounds really great.
We have recorded 2 songs, Compito and Fago, which was really something new for us. Such a project connected to tradition and to songs which are passed through from generations to generation. It is first time. He wanted to do a mixture between his native and folk history, orchestrated for a modern orchestra.
Ron, we're just going to have a little chat about the process of recording or actually writing something and then getting it orchestrated. So first of all, I'm going to show a copy. This is just a picture, so it should work okay. So here we've got some music that Ron has written. This is the Logic session. A lot of people have asked, how do you send the music? How can we actually get our music to be orchestrated and arranged? This is a copy of the Logic session. So we've got things like cello melody, high violins, which gives us an indication of what they're meant to be. The strings may just be something like this, which is just all the strings together. Then we will actually separate those. That's the job of the orchestrator. Well, it could be the job of the composer if there's time, but the way that things are so done so fast these days, it's often not the case. And here is another line. So that's that. And then if we look at the score, how it turns out after that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the score. So this is work that you've done, Joaquim, based on Ron's composition.
Yeah, it's Ron. Yeah.
Okay, so say for instance, this piece of music we've just seen, what is your process? I know you spoke about getting some ideas and themes together. You've had a piece of music signed off by the director. What's your process from there?
this particular cue is actually, this is the first cue I wrote for the film. It's basically, it was envisioned in a different way initially. So I had written a different theme altogether, something before the director went for the shoot. But later, when I saw the film rushes and this particular montage, this is where the lead character is, she's recuperating from a suicide attempt. So it was shot in a way that in the script, it was like a series of a passing of time, like how she's recuperating at home. But finally, the visuals came in such a way that the character is just sitting in her room, and the shots are lit and shot in a way that it looks like as if it's one single shot, but it has been stitched together. So it was very exciting for me, and this has to convey a lot of time lapse from like a month or two has passed, and she's slowly coping up with, and she has just a maid to help her, but her maid has this kind of a mother kind of a bonding. So she's like a motherly support. So it's a very emotional cue.
So it's quite emotional. Well, let's just see if we can actually play your finished piece. I think that's this is this one here, I think. Let's see if we can.
Beautiful.
Very emotional. We'll let everyone hear, but it's very, very beautiful, Ron. Actually, there's a question that Nikhil Sinha is a music student in Mumbai. He said that, and maybe Ron, you can answer this question. He said, I heard somewhere a good background score is one which you don't hear particularly in the scene, but it uplifts the scene. And he gives an example of Interstellar. How do you achieve that? Is that because there's the sound perspective of, or is it composing? Because he says, as Interstellar and Mr. Zimmer is rather limited in the range of melody. Well, maybe in Inception, there's not so much melody, but emotionally it's quite incredible. So how do you have a piece of music which is important to the scene, but doesn't take over from it? So how do you get that balance?
Normally, I look at the scene like, if I would like to underline or enhance what is actually missing. Like in a scene, if something is there, I wouldn't score for that. So in this scene which I've scored, I need to convey this emotional quotient where this girl, she's already going through a lot, but she has to cope up. She has to she has to come back to her normalcy, and she has her maid to her support, and she's giving a motherly support. So all these things, but visually it is there just in just one shot, like in one room. So
this cue is actually leading the scene. So there's no dialogue here. So that's a really great opportunity as a composer, that you don't have to deal with dialogue. And I think that's another conversation, how you write underscore for dialogue. I often say if this dialogue is good enough, you don't really need any music, but there are times when you do. Joaquim, what's your kind of thoughts on the invisibility of music, or whether you hear. I mean, we all hear the music, but when does it take over and become too much?
Well, no. I mean, I like the word invisibility of music, or this concept, because I think when I leave the theatre not really remembering the music, I know that was a really competent composer. I mean, not necessarily an amazing one, or I probably didn't touch me, but actually the soundtrack did what it was supposed to do, because you're just engrossed in the story and you're not taken away from it by the music. In scenes like that, when there's no dialogue, I mean, I already, I get so excited when I see something and I think, oh my God, there's like 3 minutes when no one's talking. This is going to be me. It's an amazing sort of feeling when you're like, yes, no one's saying any rubbish. But as you say, I mean, it's a different skill, isn't it? Writing for dialogue and not getting in the way.
Yeah.
And I guess all composers, because in the film industry have to usually work against such crazy deadlines, you end up having a lot of shortcuts, as in a compositional shortcuts that you go to, and that. I guess with experience, the more you do it, and I'm sure that in 10 years I'll be writing in a very different way, and I'll be very quick at something from just having done it a lot.
We've got a few comments in the chat there, and Nachessa, who's in Brooklyn, she's saying writing for what may be missing in the scene, and I think that's often. I mean, sometimes they say, "Oh, the music will save it." It can do, but it's
that fix it.
Do you ever get that
sort of? Yeah.
Ron? Sorry? Ron, do you ever get that thing we're saying, the music will fix it, will fix the issue with the scene?
Yeah, I've had some directors say in few sequences, but I would say that, at the end of the day, music has to convey the story in the best effective possible way. So I have to support the director's vision. So that is my main priority there. And at the same time, it's important for me to write a musical piece which supports the scene and it stands on its own as a complete.
Yeah. I mean, that's the interesting thing about, because what's very popular now are soundtracks of film scores. Does a piece of music stand up as a piece of music on its own, or is it integral? Does it need to be with those pictures? And I mean, I think as composers, we all want to have our music to work away from the film, but you're absolutely right. We've got to work for the priority is the story and what works for that. Laurent, when you're working with composers, do you often have the directors at the sessions as well?
Yes, it happens. It happens. I would say 40% of the time the director shows up. It really depends on the interest of the director in the music. Some directors really pay a very big interest to how it's recorded and are curious, and some other just are busy with something else. I don't know. So I would say yes, maybe in one case.
Have you ever experienced the time? I think, what was it with? I don't remember the composer, that the director heard it for the first time at the orchestral session and said, "I hate it." I don't suppose that really happens now, but have you had any experiences where there's, there is any, not confrontation, but disagreement per se in the studio, or when at that recording stage?
No, the disagreement never. I don't think that I have ever experimented that. I mean, of course, the director might have changes on in the process and asking version, like, I don't know, cut out the flute or whatever, or I didn't, or was not sounding like this. I didn't imagine that. So they can change something, but I never experience. I think the director has pretty validated. I mean, we should ask Ron, knows better than me, but probably the director is validating everything before they go to recording, I guess, because it's pretty rare, right? That they discover.
Yeah, I think now with technology like that, exactly, we're making mock-ups that sound so great. So there was a time where you made a mock-up and it didn't really sound that good. And when you got to the orchestra, it sounded so different that sometimes the director might prefer the mock-up. But not
no,
it's
generally the director are, when they go from the, like this, mock-up or sample to the orchestra, they're really like surprised and they're very excited, and they maybe sometimes even see the movie a little differently or something. You know, they are very excited because they didn't expect something like this. So this could be good.
I have a sorry. Is someone going to say something?
Yeah, there's a few questions coming in on. I mean, what we do is I've got a bunch of questions that have been given, but I know that some of the people aren't on, and some who are, we can have them directly.
This is just following. It's just following what Laurent said, that he's not been in or has witnessed disagreements. I can think of one, and it was my own project, and the director was listening in and said, "Well, I don't like this." So I've had that happen. It happened just once, and then you just need to find out what it is. And hopefully what they don't like is that there's too much music or too many elements rather than too few, because it's very easy in this, and this is, it links to orchestration as well, and how we can arrange the music to be recorded in sessions, is that because of the possibility of overdubs, which is when you record certain bits of music on a different take, but it's supposed to be, I'm sure that everyone's familiar with that. For the people who are not, and that's basically what it is. It's all supposed to be played together, but you record just one chunk of it and then you just record another chunk. Because the possibility of doing that, you have the flexibility of just saying, well, do you like it now? And just muting a few things and seeing what the reaction is. And that fixed it. In my situation, there was one thing that in the mock-up, it was not clear. It didn't speak as well. And then in the session, suddenly, the violas were doing something that to the director sounded absolutely crazy. It was just some, I don't know, some spiccato thing. And we just said, okay, violas tacit from bar 4 to 10. And that was it. And the problem was solved. Obviously, sometimes maybe it's not. Yeah,
because there is a more clarity in the live orchestra, and I think that sometimes it gives too much information. I've got a couple of other questions there.
Sorry,
Jabji Singh, who's one of our orchestrators, actually, he's saying have directors' demands changing during the sessions. I think you've covered that, Joaquim.
That was the one. Notation software, Sibelius. I use Sibelius. You can use all sorts, but I'm just familiar with Sibelius.
Just Vijay Kurian, who's a faculty member of for music at Whistling Woods, which is one of the big music and film schools in Bombay. Quite a few of the students are on, and he's saying that some of the Indian film directors have not learnt Western music, so they're not familiar. I mean, we briefly spoke about this earlier, about the way the actual the ranges of instruments. This is something that we can fix. So if someone sent us the score, the session, we could fix it and move the instruments around to make it work. I think that covers that question. Leonard, who's probably India's only whistling session player, and we've actually used him on a theme for a TV show which we did in India a year or so back. Can whistling take off in films? Well, what about the Westerns of the 60s and 70s? That was all very Western. So if anyone wants a whistling session player, then Leonard is there for you for that. Srikant Krishna, who's wonderful. What input or materials are given to the orchestrator to work with, specifically to Indian films? again, Joaquim, what do you get? It could vary. Could you get a piano, just like something on a piano, and you could orchestrate it from that?
It varies enormously. I think all composers that work in media nowadays are so well equipped with at least a few sample libraries that it's very unlikely if they're prepared to pay for a string orchestra that you will get a piano role. You're very likely to get a string patch that covers the entire range of a string orchestra. And then it's up to you to divide it how you see fit. So that's really, and you might just see that it's been named violins and know that actually, 2 octaves below middle C, it will definitely not be a violin. It's likely to be a cello or a double bass. But a lot of the time it will just be broad. Broad orchestration already, so strings, woodwinds, things like that. Sorry, can I just, because I wouldn't want to think that some questions have not been answered, and there was one that caught my, and we've talked about this, and it relates to what Ron was saying about fixing a scene, and someone said, well, maybe not fix or not save the scene, but actually just help cover its weaknesses. And I think this is a commonly known thing, but maybe not, is that we can divide what the music does in technical terms, descriptive terms, and then dramatic terms. So a cue might be a technical cue, meaning, well, there are 2 scenes that clearly do not belong together. They just happen to be next to each other, and the music will mesh them together. So that's technical. Then descriptive, simply, it's sad and you want sad music, brilliant. Or dramatic, where a situation where you're adding to the scene. So I think those are the 3 things that help me and kind of think, okay, what do you need? I mean that's very basic, isn't it? It doesn't need to be just one or the other, but it's sort of, it helps me sort of decide, well, does it work technically, this scene? Yes. So are you trying to add something to it, or just maybe just add some detail that you have noticed in the scene that people might not have, But anyway, so that was it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's good. Ron, there's a question from Mark Waterman. How do you cope when you have to compose to a deadline, and do you sometimes find it stops the flow of creativity? Mark is a wonderful composer here in the UK. He's asking that question. And Ron, could you maybe shed some light on your thoughts of creativity when you're under deadline, when you're under the hammer?
When you're under deadline, if you're already ready with some material, like if you have composed some themes for the film, it will be really helpful for you. So it's always better to start. I would advise, not advise, it's just a suggestion. I would just tell you, you should be ready with some kind of a material, because you would have been into the project for quite a while then. You know the story, and you would have had conversations with the director, and you would have, luckily, if you could have even seen the rushes. So if that's the case, I think even before the reels come on to you, I think it's wiser to be prepared in a way that you have composed some kind of themes or some interesting sequences, so that you can save some time and you can just proceed, like finishing before the deadline.
That's a great question. Julia's asked about the many variables if a director really wants to orchestra for an indie film. The range and costs, Julia, I can answer that offline. We can have a chat about that. Julia's in New York. She's a director in New York. There was one other question which I wanted to... Okay, Vikram says, if I wanted a firm establishment in the film music industry, where and how do I start? So I guess he means that if he wants to get into the industry, where do you start? Now, well, I suppose there's so many ways. Ron, we were speaking earlier before we did the session about doing short films. Sometimes those short films become feature films. The director does that and they stick with you. You found that works for you.
So, yeah, like you have to have some good networking, like good connections with the directors or any technician, like a cinematographer, that will any day help you, because if they really have witnessed your talent, they liked your work, and if they are in touch with it, but you need to be in constant touch with them so that they remember you. You're always there in their mind. So when someone asks them, like, I need a composer for this work, you will suddenly pop up in their head. And at that time, you have to have some kind of a demo. Like, it's always better to have had composed pieces for different kind of genres, so that when the director or the producer who wants to listen to your work, that's how Maya happened for me. Because when one of my close friend, he happens to be the content head in an audio label. So he knows my work. So when he was asked by the producer, like, I need a composer for this so-and-so horror kind of a film, I was actually looking forward, being in the Indian industry, it is very much songs heavy industry. And this project came up like, we don't have any songs, it's just a score. And this happens to be my launch pad. And I was like very much, because here composers, they see you as music directors only when you compose songs. I don't understand really, because, okay, songs have a good market, but scores literally carry the film like through our film. And it's like the musical narrative of the film, which the producers or directors, even if they acknowledge that, they will not understand that. All they want to do is about monetizing the songs. And so songs are a very big, much priority than the scores when it comes to Indian industry. So I would suggest you that you have some demo of different genres of songs, as well as different genres of themes or scores you can prepare for various kind of genres, so that you will have something to show and show your director or producer who's approaching you. I think that would help them.
Thank you, Ron. Yeah, it's a bit of a catch-22 situation where if you haven't got the work, you don't have any examples to play. But I think I agree with you that you've got to be proactive yourself to create a show reel and program up and make a good variety of music that you can. So I think that, Vikram, I hope that answers your question. We are almost coming to end of time, but I just wanted to, we may stay on for maybe 5-10 minutes to answer some extra questions afterwards, but I just wanted to quickly run around our three wonderful panelists and just thank all you guys for coming on today. There was one, Mark, who's in Baton Rouge. He says, are you interested in composing in America? So I'd be in contact with him.
Ron said no.
Now, if that happens, Ron, we're all going to take 10%, all the panelists, okay?
Ron has already, in the meantime, Ron has already sent an email.
Yes, exactly.
He's too busy.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, the deal's already done. He's doing Mark's next film. Laurent, I know we didn't have too much for you to say because Ron just wouldn't let anyone else speak. Oh, sorry, Joaquim wouldn't let anyone else speak.
I'm sorry.
No, not at all. No. I think you've all generously shared your information and your experiences, which I think for all of us at different levels, writing music for films. And also, I know on the attendees today, we've got quite a few directors and writers, and it is important to have a good relationship between filmmakers and composers. And we'll do another panel coming up where we'll have some film directors talking about commissioning music and how composers can prepare for that process, which I think is very important. Laurent, can we just have a final chat with you? Do you see, I know that you've gone through 2 months of the orchestra closed, but do you see an increase in composers using your orchestra?
Oh yes, definitely. I mean, in the use of the studio, yes. I would say. Let me answer that. Yeah, I think when we opened the studio, the stage was like obviously quite good. So we had a more and more composer, but I think also young composer are more and more interested to use orchestra. And seeing also young composer, I mean, also from India, yes, I was surprised how interested they were in orchestra, or young composer or composer never had the opportunity to use orchestra.
I think that is very true. I mean, I know with Ron and a lot of South India probably uses the orchestra even more than Bollywood does in Bombay. But I think there is definitely a younger generation, and you've made that possible, which is exciting. That now with, okay, it's costs still, but with a reasonable budget, you can get an incredible sound for the film, and everybody wants that quality. So I think we'll only see more.
Again, I would say that I was talking about an ecosystem with orchestrator and composer and everything, but also with the orchestra, it's an ecosystem. I think that our kind of orchestra make it possible also for English and maybe I hope US orchestra to get the work, because one friend in England told me once, even if you play in first league, you're not going to play in Wembley every week, right? So you need all this kind of different opportunity to work, and it's good to start with us and then make your career. And if you have the opportunity to use, everybody would like to use LSO or this kind of great orchestra that our model, And I think that this ecosystem, we should all work together to just maintain this tradition. So I think it's a great thing if there are orchestras that you can make like a music for an independent movie or a movie series or TV. You keep this tradition and to keep this going on. There's never enough orchestra around the world. It's the So this is what I would say.
Well, I know that when we try and book with you for the Indian films, you're often too busy, which is great, But I think you need to start a second orchestra, Laurent. Laurent, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And the service you've given to the film industry. Ron. Can we just have a few final words with you? What's next for you, and how are you moving forward with your next project?
Yeah. I'm also working with my friend, the Game Over directors, Ashwin's. Like we have a very close rapport. So whenever he gets an idea, he just shares it with me, so I can write something for him. I will give it to him. So it helps him in his writing process. So I like to work that way also, from the start. So that's how I'm just working right now.
No, that's great, Ron. And I think one thing I do see, there's a loyalty within the film directors that if they like working with you in the score, you're kind of set up. And that relationship, and films are made much faster in India than they are in the rest of the world. So I think that's wonderful. But Ron, thank you so much. And thank you for also, recording the orchestra and working with us and enabling other people to hear what's going on in the West and bringing that to a wider audience in India. Joaquim, again, thank you for your contribution and your involvement. I mean, you've come into the team quite late on. I mean, just probably a year and a half now. And we have about 8 or 9 orchestrators, but there are some times when everybody's working on films, Indian films. So there is a lot of work to go around. So I would encourage those who are orchestrating. I know we've started using some Indian orchestrators as well, which was always the idea, was to train up or get orchestrators working with our team in the UK. What's next for you? Joaquim, I know string quartets every day, but apart from that, what's next?
Well, that's a personal project, and that's been great because other work has eased off. The orchestration work and stuff has eased off now because the orchestras were shut. Hopefully now everything will restart. Those quartets just kept me sane, really, and I got back in touch with what I wanted to write. I am now doing a lot of projects helping people record from home. So you know, those videos that you see on YouTube where everyone's doing their own thing and then someone puts it together. Well, I'm putting a lot of those videos together, some for money, which is good. And I've just been doing a documentary, and which will be very exciting, about obviously what the only thing that a documentary can be about at the moment, but I'm not allowed to say. And that's about it. And some teaching, I do some teaching, which I love as well.
Okay, well that's great.
Yeah,
wonderful. There is one last question which I'm going to thank you, Joaquim. There's one last question that's Giaco Tamarang. I hope I pronounced your name right. How do you cope with conducting an orchestra after you've composed scores? In Hollywood, most composers conduct the orchestra while recording. What about young composers who have no orchestra training and know nothing about conducting? Well, Laurent, you have a team of great conductors, so they do the conducting, but you do have external conductors or sometimes composers that want to conduct their sessions. Is that right?
Yeah, everybody's welcome to come and conduct. Only what I would say is that when you see in the US, a conductor or a composer would conduct, yes, but behind there is a lot of, very good also, orchestrator and, multi-pair of ears to check that. So really it's very important to have somebody in the booth really to control that everything is going well. So the thing is that I think that everybody has his job. A conductor is a conductor and has, notion of time or what he can get during a session. But of course, I think it should be a real pleasure to conduct.
But what's nice, though, is that I think that what he was saying there was that if you have no knowledge of it, it doesn't matter because you've got great conductors and they work very closely. Well, guys, I think we should wind up now. We've gone 7 minutes over, and I think everyone's got a life. It's actually a bank holiday day today. I know everyone's got a life. Everyone's stuck inside. But even so, it's been wonderful talking to you. Sorry about the few technical problems. For all the attendees, and I know they're all over the world. They're in New York, in Canada, Singapore, and a lot in India, and a lot of students, a lot of experienced composers as well. I just hope there's been something, a nugget for each person, and we will be doing regular webinars if there's a call for them. So thank you very much, and we'll send you an email with the links and everything, and all the very best to everybody. Thank you so much.